What if the most dangerous thing happening in America right now isn't a single event, a single protest, a single election, or a single headline, but a slow accumulation of pressure that nobody wants to admit is building? That's the question Joe Rogan posed when he dove into why some people genuinely believe America is headed for chaos. He didn't frame it as a prophecy. He didn't declare collapse inevitable. Instead, he dissected the feeling, that low-grade tension humming beneath daily life, and asked why so many Americans, across political and economic lines, feel like something is fraying. Rogan's core argument wasn't that chaos is guaranteed. It was that the ingredients for instability are visible, measurable, and compounding. And ignoring those ingredients, he suggested, is more dangerous than acknowledging them. He began with polarization, not as a buzzword, but as a lived reality. Political disagreements used to be arguments over tax rates or foreign policy strategy. Now they often feel like moral confrontations. Americans increasingly view political opponents not as people with different policy preferences, but as existential threats to the country's future. That shift matters. Disagreement can coexist with stability. Distrust cannot. When citizens fundamentally distrust each other's intentions, compromise becomes betrayal rather than governance. Rogan pointed out that media ecosystems amplify this distrust. Cable news, digital outlets, and social media platforms operate on engagement-based models. Emotional intensity keeps viewers watching. Outrage spreads faster than nuance. Algorithms do not prioritize calm debate. They prioritize interaction. The result is a feedback loop where the loudest and most extreme voices dominate the conversation, creating the impression that the nation is permanently on the brink of implosion. Two Americans can wake up in the same city and consume entirely different realities. One sees a country descending into lawlessness. The other sees a country sliding toward authoritarianism. Each believes the other is misinformed, or worse, malicious. Rogan emphasized that when a society loses a shared understanding of basic facts, governance becomes fragile. Policy debate requires at least partial agreement on what is happening. Without that foundation, conversation turns into parallel monologues. But he didn't stop at media. He shifted to economics. Economic strain is not abstract. Rising housing costs, increasing healthcare premiums, persistent student debt, and inflationary pressure affect daily life. When people feel financially squeezed, their tolerance for political friction decreases. Economic stress amplifies emotional stress. Emotional stress fuels political volatility. Rogan argued that economic insecurity intensifies ideological rigidity. When individuals feel secure, political differences feel manageable. When individuals feel cornered, differences feel threatening. Anxiety seeks explanation, and politics offers targets. Blame becomes simpler than structural reform. He also addressed generational tension. Younger Americans face housing barriers and job market instability that previous generations did not experience in the same way. Older Americans worry about retirement security and cultural shifts that feel rapid and disorienting. Each generation interprets instability through its own lens. Each believes its concerns are underrepresented. This layered generational friction adds to the broader sense of strain. Institutional trust plays a critical role. Surveys over recent years have shown declining trust in Congress, media institutions, and large corporations. When trust in institutions weakens, alternative narratives gain traction. Some of those narratives are constructive, others are destabilizing. Rogan warned that chronic distrust erodes social cohesion. If citizens believe systems are fundamentally corrupt or rigged, they may seek solutions outside traditional frameworks. That does not automatically mean violence, but it increases susceptibility to radical rhetoric and disruptive movements. He emphasized that chaos rarely begins dramatically, it builds gradually. Historically, societal breakdowns do not start with sudden declarations. They begin with localized distrust, contested legitimacy, and escalating rhetoric. Social media accelerates this process. Information spreads instantly. Outrage mobilizes crowds quickly. Context often lags behind emotion. The constant framing of events as emergencies compounds the problem. Breaking news alerts flash across screens daily. Political commentary cycles endlessly. Humans are not neurologically designed for perpetual alarm. Chronic exposure to crisis framing can produce fatigue and cynicism. Cynicism reduces empathy. Reduced empathy deepens division. Rogan also explored cultural change as a source of unease. Rapid shifts in social norms, debates over identity and language, and technological transformation in communication patterns contribute to a feeling of instability. Change itself is not chaos, but rapid change without broad consensus can create friction. Friction, if unaddressed, accumulates. Governance gridlock further intensifies the perception of dysfunction. Legislation stalls. Executive actions reverse with administrative changes. Court battles drag on for years. Policy whiplash undermines predictability. Predictability is foundational to economic planning and social confidence. When citizens perceive that long-term planning is impossible because rules may shift dramatically every election cycle, stability feels fragile. Crime narratives also contribute to public anxiety. In some communities, residents report feeling less safe. In others, data suggests crime trends are complex and not uniformly rising. Perception often shapes behavior more powerfully than statistics. If people feel unsafe, political rhetoric escalates. Escalated rhetoric deepens division. Technology anxiety compounds these pressures. Artificial intelligence disrupts industries. Automation alters labor markets. Deepfake technology blurs distinctions between authentic and fabricated content. Surveillance concerns grow. Technological acceleration outpaces policy adaptation. When change outruns regulation, people feel exposed and uncertain about the future. Rogan also noted global instability. International conflicts, economic competition among major powers, supply chain disruptions, and energy price volatility all influence domestic mood. The United States does not exist in isolation. Global turbulence reverberates internally, shaping perception and political tone. Importantly, he avoided apocalyptic language. He did not declare that America is collapsing. He described compounding stressors. Each individual stressor may be manageable. Combined, they create cumulative pressure. Pressure does not equal collapse, but ignored pressure can lead to fracture. The viral resonance of his analysis came from tone. He was not predicting civil war. He was challenging complacency. The belief that instability cannot happen here can prevent necessary reform and adaptation. Stability is not automatic. It requires maintenance. Rogan argued that what stabilizes societies is not rhetoric, but systems. Economic opportunity, transparent governance, functional institutions, shared civic norms, and cross-ideological dialogue. These are unglamorous solutions. They do not trend on social media, but they reduce pressure. He acknowledged that online perception often exaggerates division. Most Americans are not screaming at each other daily. Many communities function peacefully. However, silence from moderates creates the illusion that extremes dominate. The loudest voices online can distort the perceived center of gravity. He urged intentional consumption of information, diversifying news sources, engaging offline, slowing reaction cycles. These are small individual actions, but they counteract algorithmic amplification of outrage. The central idea he conveyed was that chaos is cumulative. It emerges when polarization, economic strain, institutional distrust, technological acceleration, and cultural friction intersect without coordinated response. None of these factors alone guarantee instability. Together, they create vulnerability. He reminded listeners that America has endured crises before: civil war, economic depression, social upheaval. Resilience exists, but resilience required leadership, reform, and civic participation. It required acknowledgement of tension rather than denial. The power of his commentary lay not in prediction, but in articulation. He articulated a widespread sense of brittleness, a perception that systems feel strained, not broken, but strained. And brittleness under sustained pressure can snap. He concluded with a sobering thought: chaos is not destiny. It is the result of accumulated, unaddressed stress. Ignoring strain does not eliminate it. It allows it to grow quietly. The internet reacted predictably. Some accused him of exaggeration. Others praised him for naming the tension. But the conversation resonated because it did not rely on fear-mongering. It relied on pattern recognition. America is not in flames. Institutions still operate. Markets still function. Infrastructure remains intact. Yet underlying pressures are visible. Polarization is real. Economic anxiety is real. Institutional distrust is measurable. Technological disruption is accelerating. Cultural change is rapid. Recognizing those realities is not alarmism. It is awareness. The question Rogan ultimately left hanging was not whether chaos is coming. It was whether Americans are willing to address the sources of strain before pressure converts into fracture. Stability is not self-sustaining. It is maintained through effort, adaptation, and dialogue. Without those, tension compounds. Chaos does not erupt spontaneously. It accumulates. And accumulation, unlike spectacle, is easy to overlook until it reaches a tipping point.